Hey, everybody. It is Friday. It's 11 a.m. Pacific time, which means it's my Friday morning live for my photographer friends. So while I'm waiting for everybody to come on in here, I will tell you a few things, a few little housekeeping things. I will be, let's see. Where's my calendar? I need to put my calendar in front of me because I won't be doing lives as normal. I will be out on a project and I kind of don't think I'll be able to do lives, so I'm not going to promise upcoming. So let's see. Oops. So we're doing a live today. I will be doing it next Friday. And then in the beginning of November, November 5th, 12th, 19th, I will not be doing lives. I will be posting videos and posting photos. I'll be out on a project, a little more about that up and coming, but I'm just kind of giving you an idea that there'll be a couple of weeks that aren't normal. As if every week is normal. What is normal? Does anybody know? So hi everybody, welcome. Where y'all hailing from today? I should put that in the chat. I should put that right in there and pin it. Let's see. Where are you from? I'm doing that right now. I just love, I don't know why. I think that is so much fun, but it is. Cool. Anyway, because otherwise it's really quiet and it's like just me talking, which it always is, but you know, it's just fun to know where you are because it makes you more real. You're not just names that somebody posted. Right. So today, a few things. SoCal, Mojave. Are you having weather down there? Mojave Desert. We're having the atmospheric river is coming in right now. Getting ready. We won't be getting as much rain here as they will up the hill, but woohoo! We've gone from forest fires burning down Tahoe to an atmospheric river. It's just too much fun. So those of you that are come on in and tell me where you're from. And I'm just looking to see names here. So yeah, it's all windy. In fact, that factors into one of the things I'm sharing with you today. And it'll be fun. So today I'm going to do a little bit of post-processing to show you some things just for fun, because that's always fun. And I also wanted to let you see, where do I want to start? I have a question. So every week I get questions, and I like to answer some of them in our weekly lives because many of you have the same question. So it's kind of fun to answer you here. I'm being really distracted by, I'm going to show you, of course, I need to replace my window so it's a little like dim, but the color and the wind and the light outside is kind of like going off. It's really pretty. So Portland, Oregon native, living here in LA. Oh boy, how's LA? Are you having fun in LA? Are you getting the atmospheric river? We're getting it. So let's see. I wanted to encourage y'all to jump over to my website. The link is in my bio, and sign up for the mailing list because I'm getting ready to do some things for subscribers, with subscribers. One of them is a Zoom meeting. Hey, North Carolina. North Carolina is such a beautiful place. Oh my gosh. I love it there. Anyway, so jump over to my website, KarenHuttonArt.com, link in the bio, sign up for the mailing list. You get 20% off your first order. Of course, right now I have a 25% off sale, so you don't do both, you do one or the other, but that sale is going to be over soon. So anyway, the 20% off you can use anytime. But I've got some things coming up for subscribers, including a Zoom meeting. I've never done a meeting, a hangout, like meet and greet with all of my subscribers. We've had certain subsets, like ones who have gone on retreats with me. Scotland! Hey, Scotland, how you doing over there? Anyway, certain subsets for different reasons, but I've never just thrown the doors open and said, hey, let's meet each other. Let's like see who you are and let's like talk about stuff. So I have some topics in mind, and I'm putting them out there to my subscribers, and we're going to decide what we're going to do. That'll probably happen. I'm going to be out on this road trip until, you know, the date is a little ishy as to when I'm coming back, but it'll be, I'm guessing, the third week of November. So we're talking like end of November, beginning of December. We'll do that. And then I'm also going to be doing some webinars, going to try and, you know, see how that goes. I teach so much, you know, for Calby One and for other groups and so on and so forth. And I thought, well, maybe we'll do some of our own webinars over here. And the topic is something subscribers can have input into, which is lots of fun. Anyway, I've got some other plans in mind. So if you want to join the troops, be part of the insiders, jump over to KarenHuttonArt.com, link in the bio, sign up for the newsletter, and I'm going to be getting that all up to speed. So, upcoming lives here. Got some fun coming up. I'm gonna start having friends coming over for the holidays once I'm back. Deb Sandage will be back. Rick Salmon will be back. We're gonna just like do up the holidays. And then I've been talking to some of I'm a professional Fujifilm ex-photographer, so I was talking to some of my Fujifilm family who do very, very different things than me. And I thought it would be really fun to have them in on some of these lives to talk about, you know, the one thing I will say about all of us Fujifilm family people is we tend to be very purpose driven. We tend to be very vision and purpose and like it's all about something greater than us driven. So I'm going to start having whoever wants to, in fact, my very first one will be on it's going to be November, because again, craziness between now and the end of November, but they're going to start popping over, and we'll be talking about what they do and how they create their vision and so on and so forth. It's always fun to have friends over to talk about the same topic from a different perspective. It's just loads of fun. So we'll be doing more of that. Let's see. What else do I need to share with you before we jump in? Okay, so the question I got this week, which had to do with what we talked about last week, Jacksonville, Florida. Hello, Florida. Florida, I want to visit Florida. The other reason I always have everybody tell me where they're from is I want to go everywhere. And so I get to go, oh, Florida. I've been to Florida, but I want to go back to Florida. Anyway, I'll be in Utah in a couple of weeks, so I'm looking forward to that. Anyways, so the question that came in this week had to do with last week. I mentioned I was actually I was getting ready to go shoot, and I was wearing this, and I talked a little bit about my backpacks. I was talking about my gear because I was going to go out and shoot, which I did. And I had this on, and I talked about my backpacks and why I chose what I chose, and you can go back and check that one out if you want to. I won't go into the whole thing. But the question came in very specifically asking what other photo-related gear makes it easier for hands and back. That's a wrist, hands, back, neck. Those are all things I notice photographers over time. And those of us that are, you know, vintage like a fine wine, have issues with sometimes. So it was a really interesting question because there's sort of a couple of answers, but it opens up the gate for another set of answers. And that is, so many of you know some of these things. So I wear this thing sometimes because I trained horses for 45 years. I did a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of wrenching on myself. And so I have, and then there was a figure skater and a dancer. And so, you know, there's occupational hazards with all of those things, and I have them all. So I've had to really learn how to schlep gear in the field and, you know, hike and bend over and get in all these like weird angles that you have to when you're photographing landscape and so on and so forth. Not to mention, you know, when I travel and things like that. And I have figured out some things that make it a bit easier. That said, I have to do a lot of things differently as well. So here's something, and to some of you that are younger, this might not seem as relevant, but trust me, in 20 years it will be. So good morning. Welcome everybody who's just coming in. We're covering a few topics and then I'm going to do a little bit of post-processing. So, but this question about hands and back and photo-related gear that makes it easier. I mean, depending, so someone's saying, you know, IT and gardening did it, you know, because eventually you do this stuff repetitively and it becomes a problem. Costa Rica in the house again. Thank you. I love it when you come back because then it becomes like a conversation and not just a one-way thing. So welcome. Where in Costa Rica are you? Because that's a beautiful country. Another one that is on my bucket list. So anyway, back to the gear as I watch. I watch for answers and I jump over and have a little chat and then come back. But anyway, to the photo gear. So first of all, I mean, you know, everybody says the obvious one is get the lightest gear you can. Well, you know, I carry GFX. It's not exactly the lightest gear. I also carry the X series of Fujifilm, which is lighter. But right now I'm focusing on GFX for a whole bunch of reasons. So it's a little bit heavier. And so consequently, the backpack that I showed last week, which is a hiker's backpack and weighs like next to nothing. And then I get these, you know, my own padding wraps that are very, very light and take care of all the padding and everything myself, just stripping weight out all the time. I use this if my wrists start getting sore or I strain it because sometimes I don't use proper mechanics. And see, this is part of the second layer of answers once I get done with just the gear part. The mechanics, your biomechanics are huge. Those of you who shoot a lot want to be thinking about this stuff. Also, you know, flip screens, dual articulating flip screens, very helpful for necks and backs in particular when you're out in the field. Now, I'm not talking about weddings, and I mean, I suppose I don't do wedding photography. I don't do portraits. I don't do, you know, people stuff. All of my stuff is, you know, out in the field, literally landscape. So there's that. And of course, the right shoes and all the right, you know, all that kind of thing, the right backpack that fits you the right way, that allows you to bear the weight on your hips, not on your back and not on your shoulders. Mine even has a strap across the chest, which sometimes I use and sometimes I don't because I'm just always having to shift where the weight-bearing part of any pack is. The right kind of foot support is really important, at least on my feet, because and I know the question was about backs, but you know what? It's all connected. Where can I find that padded insert you showed last week? That was the Domke, Domke. And I bought them on Amazon. So if you go Domke, what are they called? I will find it for you. Oops. Amazon. And Domke. And right. They're called protective wraps. Here, I'll show you. I'll flip it. Oh, come on. There we go. So if you, I just went to Amazon, enter Domke, and you see this and this are protective wraps. This is the 15-inch, that's the 19-inch. So I think they have 3 different sizes. I have their bag too, but these wraps are really what I use the most. And they're not that expensive. Yeah, I got a few, so there was a little bit of output cost-wise initially. But for the most part, not that expensive and they'll last forever. No, the thing for the bottom of the backpack. Okay, where did I get that? I got it on Amazon. Camera bag insert. Let me see. Now you got me all like into this camera bag insert. The thing, oh, there it is. It was this, literally this. It's called High Capacity Shockproof DSLR SLR Camera Padded Bag Case Partition Camera Insert. I just put camera bag insert. That was my search. That's the item. I'm just leaving it. You can maybe do a screenshot. It was 20 bucks. Super lightweight. And you know, you can pluck it out of your bag and it has a little zip thing. Okay, good. You got that. Yay. All right. Good. I love on Amazon that you can go to your orders and find your stuff and tell somebody about it. Anyway, I find that all super helpful because that little pack I got in Italy cost about $100, I think. That's about what any of them cost. Is perfect. 20 liter. I can carry a heavier bag than 20 liters. The problem with me is then my knees and feet start hurting from the weight. I mean, after a while, you know, it takes, if I go for a big hike. So 20 liters and that setup allows me to be really flexible. I can carry everything I need, including my tripod, and it doesn't let me get too weighed down. Because some of these backpacks, you know, you can make them ergonomically perfect, and then you're carrying like 30, 40 pounds. And depending on, you know, you got to train for that. You got to get your body in shape for that. So specifically, like not just generally in shape, but specifically in shape for that. And so just be cognizant of, you know, you got this great ergonomic pack with 1,000 pounds isn't going to help you all that much. So the question here now is, could you include the links? Oh, yes, I will include the links. That's a great idea. Thanks for that. Okay. Links to gear. Writing myself a note. I'm getting ready to put that newsletter together here, probably tomorrow. Great. So those are some of the things you can do to make it easier on your hands and back. What else? I mean, I also, because grabbing a camera, like the motion of grabbing a camera and then pulling it or wrenching it, and then sometimes if my mechanics aren't right, I'm putting extra strain on my wrist. That's not so great. So having a plate, an L plate that you can extend the handle out, I find that's been super helpful, rather than always grabbing this way, which doesn't always help. This allows me to, you know, kind of, and so Really Right Stuff and Small Rig make these. Small Rig basically copied Really Right Stuff's design almost in every way, except for a couple things. They're in China, so they charge less. But anyway, this is Really Right Stuff. And Small Rig does the same. That's helpful. Now, that's the end of that part of the lecture. Here's the other part. So I trained horses, like I said, for 45 years. Taught riding, did the whole thing, figure skated professionally, danced. Don't think my back didn't give out. In fact, that's what ended my riding career, ultimately. But what I had to do, because I wasn't going to get surgery, because my back stuff doesn't really lend itself to surgery that well, so what I had to do is go to physical therapy, and I went to the best of the best in San Francisco, the St. Mary's Spine Center, and one of the doctors that, you know, worked on the pro football players and this and that and the other thing. And he said, well, particularly for my situation, you know, I had really high pain tolerance. That helped. But basically it was physical therapy. So I did physical therapy for a year. Yep. And I had to relearn my whole life. So here's the other thing. Photo gear, any kind of gear, isn't going to help your back or your wrists or your feet or anything. They will help. I'm not saying they won't, because I, you know, have the inserts and I have to wear the right shoes and, you know, everything's got to be just right. That's important. But the thing that you have to do is learn mechanics. Like, it's literally, I have to think about, I don't have to think about it anymore, but I had to change everything from how I sit to stand up, to how I kneel, to how I use my head and my neck, how I lift things. All of those things changed everything, because where before I had crippling pain and couldn't do anything, I got strong in these very specific ways that strengthened parts of my body that, you know, that I needed to use the most, which I still do because I will always have to do them. But I also learned the mechanics. So that eliminated a lot of the problem. The problem with that, of course, is the discipline of it. But hey, you know, you can, it's your choice. You can have pain, recurring pain from things that you do, because even knowing everything, I will still have, you know, I'll still wrench myself or kind of mess up my wrist or my hand like it is right now. So if I didn't do all the things that I do, I just wouldn't even be able to do my sport, which is photography. So, you know, I have to get in shape. I got to move a certain way. I have to do certain kind of strengthenings and stretches, and whatever that is for you, you're probably going to have to do if pain or discomfort or, you know, physical mechanics are at all a factor. If you're young and still able to compensate, you probably don't have to worry about that. But like I say, when you become more like a vintage wine, you do. So anything repetitive, done exactly the same way, repetitively over and over and over again, is going to be an issue. So that's my word to the wise on staying comfortable, healthy, and physically fit enough for photography. Now, what else? Any other questions before I jump in? Okay. No. All right. Great. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you, this is embarrassing, but I'm still going to, because the piece, I'm going to show you a piece. It's one of my whimsical reveries pieces that I freaking love. And I made it, actually created it last year on a day just like this. So now watch the wind die down. Now the wind has died down. Well, anyway, I'm going to show it to you. Now here comes the wind again. All right. Sorry about that. But here we go. I'm going to flip this around. Here we have a windy day. It's super windy. Like I say, the atmospheric river is coming in. Sorry, it's very, very moody because my window's got a film on it. Anyways, so this tree, you know, this big old tree out in the back, where's my thing? Right there. Whips and whips when the wind gets going because it's a very windy area. And then these leaves, which as you see have all blown away, they were covering, they're all down here now, but they were blowing, and they were blowing out of the tree this one day, they were blowing out of that maple tree out there, just flying across the back there. And it was just, I couldn't stop watching it. So I thought to myself, hold on a second. I thought, what would that look like as a whimsical reverie? Like, what? I have this whole thing that those of you that don't know my whimsical reveries, this is like a whole other part of my art I started doing not too long ago. Plus the way you sit at the PC, you might think you're comfortable. However, you're not doing your neck, shoulders, and wrists any good. Exactly. So get your ergonomics and your mechanics all straightened out. And that's the last I'm going to say about all that. So here. So you see the little view out the back. So I created that, which was my my whimsical view of my backyard when it's really, really windy. And of course, because I don't ever just see things as they are, this weird little balloon, that's actually a balloon, was, you know, part of it. So I named it Balloon on a Windy Day. So some of you have asked about, a few of you have asked about, well, at least you've asked about artifying your photographs and what, you know, and I do that too in Procreate and in Photoshop. But this was something I actually did use. I'll show you. I'm just going to go through the layers of it from the beginning. Hold on a second. I'm going to get it so that we've got, starting with that, which is like a blank, right? And then this is the kind of thing I think I want to do in a webinar. I'm going to do more of this. Okay, here we are over here. I'm going to just show you. This little arrow right here is a clipping mask. And what it enabled me to do was to clip that image which was, I will show you that. Okay, so you see this right there? That looks like, I don't know, looks like a texture or something. I did that in Procreate, and I did it from, hold on, managing this phone, and it's just easier on a Zoom. This is why I want to do it as a webinar. So we're going to go back here. That image right there became that image in Procreate because I painted it like I have shown it, and I showed it in Photoshop World, and I think I'm going to do a webinar where I dig into it a little bit differently, which I'll share for people who are interested. So anyway, I created this layer that's white, and by using what I showed you a second ago, the clipping mask, took that image and put it there. And then I have to get rid of this. There we go. And then, whoops, too many all at once. Then I made a white layer above that, right? So right there, those little cross hatches are blank. I mean, there's just nothing there. And I wanted something there. I wanted a white background. So this right here I did in Procreate. The grass looks kind of funny, but it's supposed to look kind of funny. I kind of like kind of funny art. But the sky, also did in Procreate. I brushed it out. It was a real sky from an iPhone. I have probably 4,000 clouds and sky images, and a lot of them, so in Reno, Nevada, because of the wind and because of where we're positioned relative to the weather, we get the craziest cloud formations. So I photograph a lot of them with my phone and with my camera too. So I don't even know if this particular one was an iPhone or a real camera one, but I'll take it into Procreate and then use my brushes to create a sky like this, which is painted essentially. So I clipped that to the white layer. So now I have my bottom layer and my white layer, so the ground and the sky. Then this was wind, which I also drew in Procreate, which is again why I want to, if you're interested, maybe do a little webinar, because it isn't just about Procreate, it's about creating like a background. I'm creating an environment for this piece, which I finish in Photoshop, which is what I'm going to just kind of briefly show you. And then I made a new little wind layer, and all I'm doing over here is, just toggling through my layers and showing you what each one was over there. And again, in a Zoom, webinar-y kind of situation, it's easier to show you all those things. But, you're just kind of seeing a little bit about what we could do. And so then there's another layer, another kind of wind, because as I sit here in my studio and I watch the wind, I love that question of, what does wind look like? Because you'll never see it, right? All you'll ever see is the effect of it. So I watch the trees get whipped around in the leaves, and so I see this motion. So I remember the day that I put this together, I was kind of watching the wind and the patterns and creating these patterns from that. And that's a copy of this layer, copied and then moved, readjusted to a different location. So I like layers. Layers feel there's more depth and texture. I don't like to try to just get it in one layer. So I like to layer a bunch of them together, because in the finished product, it just has more dimension. Then we needed a tree. So I had a tree. This was a Procreate stamp actually that I then painted and did shading on and did a bunch of stuff too in Procreate. And Procreate, you can move the entire file over as a Photoshop file and then open it in Photoshop and finish it. But that was originally created there. And then did some curves. I used curves in Photoshop to adjust the tree so that I wanted the light source to be coming from over here, because in my yard, that's where the sun sets. And this is the tree I wanted the tree to be facing the light. So, because I'm all about facing the light. So that was a little bit of self-woven in there. And then I made a copy of that to intensify it because this felt too faded and I could still see a little bit of the textures of the sky and whatnot through it. So I just duplicated the layer, got the shading the way I wanted it, and then duplicated it. Let me see if I did. Yeah, no, these are all normal. Okay. Then I did some things with grass that are just kind of funny, just kind of weird, just sort of layered it in. And I can move. So for instance, nice thing in Photoshop, or you can do this in Procreate too, but in Photoshop later, because they're layers, and I've highlighted the middle grass layer over there. So what I can do is, whoops, I can, I use keyboard shortcuts. So I'm on a Windows machine right now. So I use Control T. If I'm on a Mac, I use, what is it, Alt T, I believe, to create the option to move things. So I've highlighted that layer and I can take that grass layer and I can move it. And I thought of that because I'm not loving where it is actually at the moment. And then, like for instance, over here, I'm not super wild about the way it dips down. So while it is in this mode, having hit Control T, which is to be able to move it, I'm going to go right click, warp, and I can just take that little section of it. And this is that part right there, and I can just kind of move it up. I can do the same thing. There's another grass layer I'm not in love with right now. This is what happens. You go back and look at your work from before, and then the next thing you know, you're like, wait a minute, I don't like that anymore. I want to change that. And that's legit. That's an artist's prerogative. So I'm highlighting that layer. I'm sorry, Control T, that layer, right click, warp, and I'm just gonna clean that up a little bit. And you know, if I were to do this all over again, I'd probably do it differently. Because now I have, this is the great thing about art, is you learn stuff, and now I know new ways to make grass that I like. Anyway, fiddling around with that. I'm not going to mess around with it more. So now, the other thing that happens here that's interesting is even on a cloudy day, we do get some sun glow. So I'm going to add, oh, look at me throwing you all over the place. So, I'm going to add some sun glow. So over here, and this was something I did with an airbrush tool in Procreate. To add just, I like to do that with light. I've shown in past lives, I showed you a little bit about how I highlight certain areas by hand using my Wacom and an adjustment layer on different blending modes and different colors, and I can highlight parts of images in a way that is non-destructive but really helps you bring out light in certain areas. So this is just simply another way of doing that. In my case, I did it in Procreate. And then I wanted it to be warm. So I did one of my famous color fill, it's an adjustment layer color fill. So I'll show you how I put that there. Oops, sorry, zoom. I'm always saying sorry, nothing I can do about it. It's just the technology and what it is. So basically this was created by highlighting the one below it. This is in a layer adjustment, and I did solid color and then assigned, you know, just a nice pale. You can't actually see what I'm doing. You get this option, and I just assigned a nice pale yellow to it because I wanted it to be warmer. And that's what this is. So I'm going to show you toggling it on and off, and then I'm going to turn you over this way so you can see the effect of that, which is this. And the mode, it's on normal mode. I could change it, you know, if you change the blending modes, like if I change it to overlay, if I change it to soft light, it's a different thing. But I like normal because I wanted it to filter through absolutely everything. There's the warmth. Then I thought I need my leaves. Here's where it got interesting. I need my leaves. Okay, so it did this first actually. I do need my leaves in the air. But these, I just thought There needs to be something in the ground ready to grow in the spring. What's going to come up? So these are these funny plants that have those, I forget what they're called. They have these big broad leaves. So in my tiny little mind, I always say that. I have a friend who always says that. He's in my tiny little mind. And she's like one of the most brilliant people I know. So when she says in my tiny little mind, I know what she's doing is opening the door to her vast imagination. So I'm gonna say that's the spirit with which I say my tiny little mind. These are the plants ready to grow and burst forth in the spring, but right now they're just waiting underground. They're not fully formed. So that's what those are. Then the leaves in the air. All right. So you're like, oh, wait, they all appeared. Well, let me show you something interesting, which is in Photoshop. Is this interesting to you guys? I hope so. I'm going to zoom you in here and show you my leaves. Where'd my leaves go? They're here. So, but what I've got is a very large group of leaves, as you can see. So I'm not going to toggle them. I'm not going to toggle them all off. But here's my balloon. I will toggle the balloon on and off. That I did in Photoshop because I have these incredible old vintage balloon PNGs, and then I colored it. But there's the balloon on and off. I don't know. I'll show you. Whoops. I'll show you a couple of leaves. So I did these leaves pretty much individually. And I colorized them to some degree. No, actually they came in as gold and red. Anyway, so yeah, took forever. It's kind of a pain in the butt. But that's what gave it its really random feeling. And there's just a whole lot of leaves. But what I want to show you now is the balloon. Okay, so there we go. See how it has these effects, bevel and emboss and all this kind of thing? Because, excuse me, the balloon by itself is a PNG, is a little piece of clip art that's black. So by, I'm going to turn off, let's see, what am I going to do here? I'm actually going to turn on, I'm going to show you. So when I double click on the little rectangle of the balloon, this menu comes up. And in my case, I chose bevel and emboss. So I'm just going to so just watch the balloon. I'm going to toggle bevel and emboss off and on. So it was a little flat and didn't show the light that I had just made, right? Just made that nice glow. I wanted that to be reflected against the balloon. So I used bevel to do that. And then I also made a drop shadow. Pull that up where you can see it. So that was the drop shadow. And then I chose this color right here. And the blend mode multiply even told it which direction to go. So if I toggle that on and off, so it because this PNG is a line drawing, a drop shadow will fill it in to some degree, and I wanted that because it made it feel more solid. I don't always like that, but I did in this case. So that's how I made that adjustment. Let's see what happens if I turn both of these off. That's what you got, and that's what you got. Boom. So it takes a little doing to make things like this. So I'm gonna scroll back up, close up my leaves group, and go to layer 7, wherein I oh, I know, because I made a change. That's why it's changing when I do this. Anyways, I did a non-destructive duplication of one of the layers. So these were some passes that I made. Okay, so these were alts. I didn't delete them. These were like at first I was just going to do it like this, but I decided that that wasn't enough leaves. And so then I added the rest. But that was the idea, like this was the sketch. And then I added these leaves and moved the balloon and made it a little bit bigger. And then I went, okay, there is the form. Then I have a set of my own textures that I made. And I do sell them. I don't make a big fuss about them. They're just for sale on KarenHutton.com. And it isn't like anything that I promote or anything like that. But I have a whole group that I use. This is one of them, because I wanted to do a whole other thing with the light. So that texture added did that. Did a curves adjustment, which doesn't look like it did much, but it was a very subtle adjustment, which doesn't really show on the phone. And then finally did a dark, my favorite thing, which is to add a dark layer adjustment in black and do a, in this case, it was a soft light blending mode. And that's it. And that is the finished product. So it's a crazy thing, you know, using some of your images to create a backdrop for another kind of art and drawing is a thing you can do. You can work directly on your image, which is what I showed in my Procreate class with Kelby 1, because Kelby 1 is primarily about photography. So I wanted to show just for photographers how you could use Procreate to work straight onto your photographs to make them more artified, as I call it. But this is like a next level beyond it, where you start using certain parts of your images to create your background or your backdrop for your image. So that's that. The other thing I was going to show you is this image, because this is an image I wanted to process, and I figured I haven't done this one yet, actually. So I thought I would show you, I don't know what I'm showing you, honestly. I just thought one of the things that sort of semi-terrifies me is actually in real time showing someone how I do what I do, because I'm never sure how it's going to go. So, yes, that piece did look more dramatic with the colored piece. That's what I thought too. Initially, I was not going to do that, but then I was like, because it's such a pain in the butt to do, right? But I decided to add those leaves one by one. So anyway, but going back to here, this was a beautiful afternoon in Truckee, California, and there's this little grove that has this old building, which you don't actually see here. There's two parts to this little plot of land, and one has this old building I've shot for 25 years, I think. So it's been in this sort of gradual state of decay. It was the original Park Service building, this little tiny building, and now it's like slowly becoming just a frame. But it used to be a little red building. Anyway, so it's been interesting to watch the evolution of this aspen grove and that building over the years. But this is a part of the aspen grove not everybody goes up into. Mostly family portrait photographers will come up here and bring their families and photograph them, because it's so gorgeous. And when the light hits it right, it glows. So on my camera, again, I shoot Fujifilm because I'm a Fujifilm ex-photographer. And so we have film simulations. And I love film simulations. Sometimes I use them directly, but most of the time I do it because I like the inspiration that it gives me. And this is Fuji Velvia. But beyond that, the other thing I love about my cameras is that I can change everything. Like I can change the highlights and the shadows and the contrast and the amount of color. I mean, I can even shift the color balance if I want to, but I usually don't do that because mostly I'm using the JPEGs for inspiration. So I usually, in sharpness, you can adjust sharpness, and that's just the basic stuff, because the film simulations are, because Fujifilm, was a film camera for so long, they have taken that technology and woven them into the film simulation, so they're really amazing, and they really are like the films, many of which I shot with, in my younger days, so I know how good they are. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. My point is, this came closer to the feel than this, which is the raw, But because of what I like to do with my images, I like the raw, because, well, number one, the channels are more available. It's just more flexible. It's more like putty, more like, you know, raw material. So this was a GFX. I think this was my 100S. Wait for it, wait for it. Waiting for the details to come in. So the details are really, really good. You can't really tell that over the phone. But anyway, they're amazing. So here's how I approach it. I'm just going to kind of talk out loud. So right now I like, when I opened it, it goes through Adobe Camera Raw. So I brought the shadows up a little bit and brought the highlights down so all the tones are more even, so I don't have to do it now. So right now I've got my basic palette that I want. And you'll see that there's a sun, like the sun is right here. So I may do something with that too. May make some little, I don't know, rays or things, because there were those there. It's totally legit, because there it was. I need a sip of coffee for this. This makes me really nervous. I just want you to know, I freaking get nervous every time I do this. And I don't do this very often because it makes me nervous. But that's why I'm doing it with you. Okay, so here we go. All right, a little coffee for fortification. So this image right now from this point, I don't always start here, but I'm going to start here on this. I'm going to go up here to filter. And I'm going to come down here to exposure. Oh, you can't really see that. Exposure software. Anyway, I use exposure software. And I also use the Knit Collection and Skyloom and Photoshop techniques and everything. Just depends on what I'm doing. But anyway, exposure 6. I need to upgrade to 7. I just haven't done it. Oh, it's going to come over here. Okay, so I have 2 monitors here. I'll drag this over. I'll drag this over here. So actually, I really love that. I might even go with that. Ha ha ha. Okay, so I'll zoom this in a little bit for you. So basically, when exposure 6 opens, it opens with the last set of adjustments that I made. So even if I make, because I can, just like with so many softwares, you can add layers if you want to. Here's the control side. You can add layers up here. I did not do that, but I did use Kodak Ektachrome, which is one of my faves. I just really love Ektachrome. I always did. I used to shoot with it a lot. I didn't develop it myself, but when I was shooting rolls, that's one of that and Ektachrome. I'm trying to remember what my favorite ones were. Tri-X was always a favorite in black and white, but in color I loved Ektachrome. It just has to do with the colors and the depth and the shadow. And okay, I thought I was going to be doing a lot with this image, but this is actually pretty freaking good. I love this. This looks like it felt, because it had that glow and it had that light. The one thing I might do, I don't know. You know how when you do something and it turns out just about perfect the first time and you're like, what can I do to mess with it? What does it need? It needs more, but this really doesn't. I kind of freaking love it. So here it is before. Here it is after. And what I love is the way the light, you can see when the light, at least in this grove, when the light hits this angle, all these light up. Depending on your whether it's aspen or, you know, elm or cottonwood or I don't know, whatever your trees are that turn gold and turn colors, very often if the light is like overhead, like between 12 and 2, you know, if you imagine a clock overhead, that's when they really light up. But for some reason in this grove, it does light up at that time, but this was more like 3. So the sun was getting ready to, you know, the next move it made was to drop down behind these trees and then go away. Anyways, so there you are. But the thing is, one of the things in I'm going to zoom in for you. In exposure is that it has a cool, the other thing I always do is make sure the grain is down. I don't really like color grain all that much. So because I already used this on the I don't know what, I think I've been processing fall photos a lot, so I've been using this a lot. Looks similar to the film simulation, great dramatic colors. Exactly. And the thing about fall is it is dramatic and bold. And, you know, this year here, for some reason, the colors have been super intense. And the nice thing is, in these groves, some years they get, I call it the blight, they get these black specks, so the leaves don't look that pretty, and then they turn black. And there is no real show of color. So the years that there is, we really celebrate and try to get out there and photograph a lot, especially after a year like this where we had all these fires and all this smoke. Anyway, so I make sure the grain is down. Now I'm going to scroll to light effect right here. And I'm going to go blink. Now, can I pull back enough so you can sort of see what I'm doing? Don't worry, I'm not going to leave it like that. Anyway, on a Zoom, you know, if we do this in a Zoom, a webinar, in fact, if you're interested in that sort of thing, DM me for one thing, but definitely go sign up on my mailing list, because I'm going to be talking to my subscribers about this. They're going to have some input, and I'll be doing things with them first before I do anything publicly. And if you want to be part of that, please do, KarenHuttonArt.com, or just link in the bio. Anyway, point is, light effect. I don't want to use that one. They have all these different types. They have, you know, corner ones that are just haze, lens flare, which is usually the one I use, sunflare is usually the one I use. They also have lens flare. Sometimes I use lens flare, but today I want to use sun flare. I just want to see what it's going to do, and I'll show you some interesting things. This might be too yellow, but for some reason I love this corner one because it's cool. And and you can move them around, and then sometimes I steer it around the photo just because it's entertaining. But this was, you know, a lot of what it looked like to me, because I kept having to like stand behind a tree because I was getting my eyes burned out. And although I don't necessarily want your eyes to be burned out, and nor do I want to obliterate the rest of my image, but I love this, and I may leave it like that. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do one thing here. I'm going to apply this as is, so that it's, so that I have it in Photoshop as a standalone. And then, you don't have to do it like this, but sometimes I don't want to bake in this and the sun into the same image, because I may not want the sun. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to go back into exposure, and it's going to go back to the same, and it's going to be super intense because it's going to pull in the same adjustment that I just made. And so now it's like, ow, my eyes are burning out of my head. So I'm going to hit reset, because I hate it when my eyes burn out of my head, because I can do that in nature. Okay, let's go back over here to sun flare, and I was working with corner because I like that one. I could show you some others. It's a little slow because it's a big image. I don't want that corner. That's too, I could do that too. There's certain, well, it has a thing, doesn't it? It's just a little too yellow for me. I don't want to do yellow on yellow, although I like, see, you can do luminar, you can do, luminar also has sun rays you can add, but they're too, most of the time they're too dramatic for me. They're too defined, and I can't make them softer. So I'll either make my own, or I'll do a little bit here in exposure and then adjust it in Photoshop. So I could do that. I just think that one's too yellow. This is sort of a whiter yellow. Has a little more white. I like that better. Okay, the other option I sometimes use is this one that's called Haze Pale, but I think that's too white for this image. And it wasn't that white. Not that it has to be exactly the way it was, but I want it to feel, I want it to have the same sort of impact. You will be able to, so yes, the question is, will I be able to adjust the intensity of the sun flare? So yes, there's two ways I can do that from where I'm at right now. I'm going to go back to the one I think I'm going to use, which is this corner one. So within the app, so you have to understand with Photoshop, with anything, I suppose it's true in Lightroom too, there's 1,000 ways you can do any one thing. So I'm going to give you a few ways you can adjust the sun flare. one is in the app itself. So there it is. We're over here with the zoom is, all right, I'm going to take the zoom all the way up and just watch the image. Zoom goes all the way up and boom, it takes over the whole image. I don't want that. And if I go down here, it's only kind of like, you know, just in that area, which I also don't really need. I really need for it to extend into the image. So I'm adjusting it by zooming. They handle it, but they call it zooming the effect. It reaches, you know, more into the image. So I'm going to say that's a decent, you know, that makes sense according to the way I experienced it. Okay, so then you also have the opacity here. So if I lower the opacity, it goes away, not entirely, because if I move it, you can, oh no, it really does. There's a little bit. I don't know if you can see it on the phone. Just a little tiny bit of effect. And I'm putting this thing right where the sun is, so it's that part is realistic as well. So I actually like the opacity all the way up. For some reason with this app, when I take the opacity down, I always feel like it takes the effect out from the outside in rather than the whole thing overall, and that bugs. So if I want to make an opacity adjustment, I get it as close as I can in the app and then do the final adjustment in Photoshop. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at full opacity because I like that. Here's the other adjustment. It's not going to work on this, but I just want you to see blending mode. So when you're in screen, it's really putting this effect on top of the image. And but it's soft. It's not obliterating. It's I don't know why they call it screen, but anyway, I guess it's like a screen, like it's a gauzy screen film kind of thing. I don't know why they call it screen, but they do. Anyway, the point is, it sits on top. It's just not full opacity. It's a really soft, gauzy kind of thing, so you can still see through it. Overlay does another thing. Look what overlay does. It kind of lights things up. But see, this is the blending mode and the adjustment that gave me the idea of my favorite new technique, which I showed a few times ago, which I'll probably put in the webinar too, if people are interested in it, how to do this to better effect. Because the thing is, when you move the sun around, it also makes these dark areas too, which actually doesn't hurt this, but I don't know, you can kind of see it like in here when I move it around. There's like this dark star that goes with it. Anyways, it's really effective because it lights everything up in a different way. It doesn't just overlay the image, it kind of embeds itself into it. But like I said, it doesn't really work on this, but I just wanted you to see that's one of the other adjustments I make. And then, you know, you can try any of these. Darker, I don't really think does much. Multiply. Hard light. I don't usually look at hard light because yeah. No, I think I'm down with screen, which is sort of the default. And then you can play around with, you know, I know the sun is actually right there, but you know, you can raise it or lower it or whatever. Anyway, now I'm going to apply, because now the layer that's coming into Photoshop is this same image. It takes a minute because it's a huge file. So there it is. And it's the same image just with the light. So I like to do that because sometimes, for some reason, I can see better in Photoshop. I don't know why. I think that's just a mental thing. What software is this? This is exposure software. My version that I'm using right now is exposure 6. They're actually up to exposure 7 right now. I freaking love it. And it's not the only software I use. The other, I mentioned this earlier, I use exposure, I use DxO, I use the Nick collection from DxO. I use Skyloom, use Luminar, and then Photoshop. A lot of Photoshop kind of techniques, because I do a lot of super detailed custom stuff you can't do in Lightroom. Anyway, so here we are, same image with, without. So here's the other option I have. I'm just going to show this to you because I'm honestly not committed one way or the other. Maybe I should be committed. I don't know. let's see. I guess you can sort of see. I'm trying to make it so you can see. It's just awkward, no matter what. That's why it's easier in a webinar or a Zoom situation. Okay, so here we are. This layer is highlighted. And so what I'm going to do, all right, I'll zoom it in so you can really actually see. Sorry. Jerk, 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 jerk. All right, so this is highlighted. Now what I'm going to do is come down here and I'm going to hover so you can see that it says add layer mask. So I'm going to add a layer mask. When it appears, it's already highlighted. You want to make sure you're not highlighted on the image square, but on the layer mask square. And then I'm going to come back over here. There's just no really beautiful, smooth way to do this. Sorry. So if let's say, for instance, I want to make sure I'm on my brush tool, which I am, but I use, again, keyboard shortcuts. So in my case, I would hit the letter B for brush. Let's see. What opacity? I think I'm going to make this, and then I'm going to hit 2 for 20. It makes it 20% opacity. I don't like going up there and doing all that fiddling around. I do everything on keystrokes. So let's say, all right, I know I got the point. You know, the sun is here. It doesn't really have to be that bright to still have the point. Except for I don't like how I did that, so I'm going Control Z to get rid of it. And then I'm going to go again here just to soften it up. And then I'm going to go at 10. I'm going to hit 1, and it's going to be 10% opacity. Make my brush smaller. Just kind of like, I don't know, would it really be that bright in front of this tree? I'm not so sure that it would. So there's that. I don't know. I'm not committing myself. I don't think I like that. I don't like what I just did. I think I'm okay with it looking that bright. I think instead of doing the tree by itself, if I really wanted to get rid of it, I'd probably make a really huge brush and just do one click of 10% there. I like that better. I actually kind of like it. Wow, that's shocking. I'm the original let's mess with it some more, but I think I'm going to leave this alone. I may revisit it. I think I'm going to name it. What shall I name it? I think I'm going to name it Face the Glow. It's such a dumb name. I'll probably change it. But I got to save it as something because I want to save it. And I don't want to save it as its, you know, raw file name. I don't want to save that. So there you go. So I think I like that. Let's look at this with a dark background. Yep, still like it. Sometimes I do that. I change my backgrounds. Let's look at light gray. That does nothing for me, but the image still looks good. Default is like a charcoal gray. I kind of like that. Black, sometimes I get a distorted sense of color and shadow sometimes with a black background. It's just like when I do, like I have an image I did last night that I have to look in the daylight, because at night sometimes I get them too dark, and sometimes too, especially if it's a saturate, like all the fall colors this year are just so incredible that I'm having to watch the intensity of color in my images that I don't go overboard. So the ones I did last night, I've got to actually look at again in the daylight to see if I killed it or not. I don't know if I did, but I like this one. I've saved it. I create actions. I save as two different size images. One is the full res and the other is a size I can use for social. So I'll probably post this on social and other places too. And I create an action for that, so I just have to hit one button and wait a few seconds and it does everything, saves it to the right folder and the whole 9 yards. It's another handy thing about Photoshop. So there you go. A couple of images, 2 different kinds. I'm going to switch this back to me. Hi, I'm back. So was that fun? I hope that was fun. So yeah, so what I said in the beginning, just to reiterate, was that please remember my Wild Horse Connection benefit event. Donate for a chance to win prints, time with me, limited edition print, all different kinds of things, as little as $10. It really makes a difference. I posted a story yesterday on a rescue the Wild Horse Connection did, because I had visited, I'd gone out to see the babies one day, and I made a video about that, and I had never seen the Wild Horse babies. That was so sweet. But they did a rescue day before yesterday that blew my mind. So all I had was images because I wasn't invited because I'm not a volunteer. I just really admire the work they do. It was incredible because the stallion slipped in a ravine, fell, slid down, flipped on his back, and was trapped at the bottom on his back under a pipe in a ravine. He did manage to kick the pipe and break it, thank God. But the volunteers, which, as I said in my previous videos, they are trained, they're certified, all of this takes money, and they're not allowed to go out because it's under the auspices of the Nevada Department of Agriculture and law enforcement and everything else. So you can't just have a bunch of yahoos going out and trying to help a horse. They are trained. So I had it, pictures of them laying, getting it going on, and they got him out. He was uninjured, a little shook up, but uninjured, and it was incredible. So for that, for the rescues, for the rehabilitation, for the public, they deal with the public. It's a heinous, it's sometimes good, but sometimes a heinous job dealing with the public, some of whom love the horses, some of them hate them. I mean, really hate them. That's always a little startling. Anyways, yeah, so they cover a lot of territory. So, in my little way, I'm just trying to make a contribution. So I would really love it. Even if you look at the art and you go, I don't want any of it, still donate $10 if you can. I would so appreciate it. The event ends on Monday. And yeah, so there we are. So there's that. If you want to be part of the whole inside scoop about upcoming the Zoom call that we're going to do with subscribers and webinars and things like that, join my mailing list. Link is in the bio. What else? Any other questions? Do you enjoy this? If you like it, I think that's awesome. If you have ideas that you'd like to see in these lives, like I say, I'm going to have friends. Friends are going to be coming, and we're going to do some fun stuff for the holidays, just because, the holidays. And it'll be fun to have a place to get together and be of good cheer. So I hope you are of good cheer. Hope you have a fabulous weekend. Big hugs to everyone. Lots of love. Look up. Always remember, look up, look for the light. Have a great one. Bye, guys.